Hey everyone, this is Steve Kick, mortgage loan officer with LMCU and a member of the MMLA, bringing you another episode of the MMLA Connect podcast. Today I have Josh Pulsifer of Transnation Title on here. He is an account executive there. Josh, happy to have you today. How you doing?
Glad to be here, man. You know that. Love doing stuff with you guys.
I'm excited. We've built quite a great friendship over the years. And MMLA was probably the beginning of that, friendship. I think that's where we first connected. So
Yep,
it's pretty cool to have you on here and be doing this podcast and being able to share your story with everyone. So
for sure.
getting into it, Josh, you're with Transnation Title. You've been with them for almost 5 years now.
Yep.
How did you get into the mortgage business? How long have you been in the mortgage business? Tell us a little bit about your career here.
Yeah, man. So, like you said, 5 years with Transnation Title. I worked at Chase Bank for a little bit, but it wasn't anything to do with mortgages. So, like in our world, that you would say just the 5 years at Transnation, and it's kind of crazy how it happened. My really good friend Joe McLaren is a account executive on the Lakeshore in Muskegon for us, and he went to school with one of our VP's daughters, so he kind of got a job on the Lakeshore. And then he knew they're hiring for an account executive in the Grand Rapids area. And Joe and I worked together at our two previous jobs. So we always kind of followed each other just because we worked so well together. And you know that once you find somebody you connect with, you kind of, stick together. And he got me a job here. And since then, it's been great, man. And the mortgage industry and the title industry and the agents, the crazy thing about it is you don't really grow up going into an industry like this. You have to either know somebody or grow up in it. So that's the only way I can feel like people go into this industry. You don't go to school to be an agent or a lender particularly, so I'm just happy
Yeah,
that I fell into it and meet great people like you and be able to connect.
that's a great story. It's so is he still an account exec on the Lakeshore there?
Yep. So he runs our Lakeshore area, pretty much from like Whitehall, Fremont, all the way down to like Saugatuck area. So
Well, thanks to him for getting you into Transnation
I
because we love
know.
you there. You do a great job, and we're appreciative to have you, working with the MMLA too. Josh is the current West Chapter president of the MMLA, and it's been a great year so far. We've loved your leadership, Josh. Tell us about what your career in the MMLA has done for you and why you do it.
Yeah, a big part of it, honestly. So I got to give kudos to Alistair Lynch and my boss Mario Castillo because they were the ones that they didn't even tell me. They just said, "Hey, you're going to be in the MMLA. This is going to connect you well with a lot of people." And this is just when I was starting out in the industry. So for me at that time in my career, I was trying to go to everything that I possibly could to just connect with people because that's part of my job as an account executive is to get more business, and that's meeting people. So I found the MMLA, what it did for me is it really connected to me to a different group of people. In my sense, it's a little different coming as an outsider into your guys' industry, and especially being in title because I'm the middleman between the agents and lenders, so we really do see both sides of everything. So a big part of it for me was being able to connect with people like you and your Adam Talley's and your Heidi Satovias, like everybody on our board. You guys has just been more of a family to us style. And I'll even say real quick that I did lose my best friend a few weeks ago, and the amount of support and the amount of love that I felt from our group, man, is just unexplainable. And that's what this is about. It's about connecting with people, building meaningful relationships. And that's what I found out growing up as a kid, that you need to build these meaningful relationships in your life and your business in order to be successful. I found MMLA was a really good revenue right for that for my career.
Well, thanks for sharing with us, Josh, and sorry again about the loss of your friend. I
Yeah.
know that's never easy, but thank you for sharing and being honest. And I think that's one of the reasons why everyone at the MMLA and everyone in the industry loves working with you, Josh, because you're just a genuine person, and we appreciate that about you. So
For sure. I
just
mean,
keep being you, man.
ditto to you, man. You're the same. I found that we obviously, you said in the beginning, we built a pretty good relationship through this time, and we really have, man. I consider you one of my brothers now, and it's things like that. We wouldn't have met if it wasn't for the MMLA. So you got
For
to give
sure.
kudos up to where you can.
Yep, definitely. Thank you, MMLA. We appreciate you. That's
Yeah,
why we keep doing this stuff.
for
So
sure.
try to give back to the industry that's given back in, an association that's given back so much to us. So
Yep,
definitely. So Josh, you're in title, right?
yep.
And title is a big part of, a real estate transaction, a mortgage transaction. But what is title insurance? What does it do for people? Why is it important? Give us the breakdown. I think there's still a lot of people out there that don't really understand what title insurance is for and what it does.
For sure, man. So to start out with the most basic kind of layman's terms that you can explain, because even for me, honestly, I had zero knowledge of title insurance and all that before I
Sure.
started with Transnation. So I had a big learning curve to do, and it's not as complicated as what people think. So there's always going to be, with the lender involved, there's always going to be two different policies. There's going to be one for the seller, and there's going to be one for the buyer. Your seller is basically paying for an owner's policy to the buyer, saying that this is my house outright. I don't owe any more liens on the property. And that's what title insurance does. We basically, for the seller, we will take that property and we will check back up to 40 years to make sure that there's basically no break in a chain of title. What that means is if Bob is selling to Mary, we want to make sure that sale is great. If Mary was selling to Lucas, we want to make sure that sale looks good. There's no liens on the property. So we basically check this long title to make sure that property is free and clear, meaning that when that buyer buys that house from the seller, he knows outright there's no other liens on this property. There's no easements that have came up that we don't know about. And I guess the best example I can give as like a title claim would be is if a buyer bought a house from a seller without title insurance, and years down the road, if he was to go sell that house, if there was any kind of a survey or boundary issue or any kind of an easement issue, they would have to come out of pocket for stuff like that, pay an attorney to try to get those things cleared. But if they were to have title insurance in that instance, we would find things like that and get all of that cleared before the sale was to happen. And on the buyer side, they have to pay for a policy to protect you guys as lenders to basically saying, I'm going to pay my mortgage on time. So that policy on the title side protects the lender, and that's your loan policy. So that's your two different types of policy on title insurance. And the craziest thing about it is it's the only type of insurance you have a one-time policy fee, and that's it. You don't pay a monthly mortgage fee or in regular insurance. So it's the only thing that it's a one-time fee right when the sale of the house happens, and it protects the buyer and it protects the seller. So it's just that level of protection you get with a title insurance policy that you wouldn't get if you didn't have it. And you see some horror stories out there. A really quick one that's kind of crazy is Nicole Curtis. This is a really good example from HGTV. She does like the TV flips and stuff like that.
Yeah.
She bought a property in Detroit on a quick claim deed, I think for around $17,000. She put all of this money into this house, trying to rehab it and trying to resell it. But when she went to go resell it, that's when they found out that the land bank in Detroit owned this property and not the guy she paid 17 grand for. So long story short, if she would have gotten title insurance like she should have, it would have showed the land bank owned that property, not this guy that basically is issued a quick claim deed and promised that that's his property. So those are little instances of real life scenarios that kind of click in people's mind of why you would want to do title insurance and why it's so important and why you need it. And honestly, for you and for the agent representing the seller and the buyers, like it's very important to know what title insurance is exactly. And there's definitely way more detail into that, but that's where we'd love to just chat with people and talk to them about what it is and get into more details.
Definitely. Sounds like a pretty important piece, right?
For
You want to
sure.
make sure that you actually own the home when
Yep.
you purchase it, right? So,
100%.
yeah, I mean, thanks for sharing with us. I think there's, that clears up a lot of things for people that, might not understand exactly what it's for and why it's required on every transaction. And the lender is going to require it because we want to protect our own interests as well, too.
For sure.
So, it does protect the lender as well as the borrower,
Yep.
and the seller and, everyone involved. So definitely. Is there anything going on in the title world right now, Josh, that you can tell us about? Anything new or exciting
Yeah,
that
there's
Transnation is
some
working on?
for sure. So there's some things going on. I kind of negative and positives. We as Transnation, we love technology, but obviously with that becomes more fraud. So we're getting a lot of vacant land scams coming across the screen right now, where basically somebody will call up and say, "Hey, I have a piece of land I'm trying to sell." I'll try to do everything through a mobile notary, but basically these are guys selling property underneath people on a vacant land scam. So that's going on the negative side, but on the positive side, there's always stuff to recourse that. We're always doing training sessions on how to combat these things. We have security set up in place for Transnation does for secure transactions with our closing lock process and things like that to verify people. But yeah, on another note too, that's what's starting to happen in our industry as a total. There's certain lenders that are pushing attorney opinion letters for title insurance instead of title insurance, and that's very dangerous to the buyer because what an attorney opinion letter does is, and honestly, the cost is about the same or maybe even a little bit more using an attorney opinion letter instead of getting title insurance. What's happening is some of these lenders are getting incentivized to use this certain attorney opinion letter, and if they get that program used, but that the buyer has no protection, it's basically an attorney coming in and saying, "Hey, this is what I think is on the property. I think you're good here. I don't think there's any liens," and that he'll give you the opinion on it, but it's zero assurance. So that's
That's
happening pretty
crazy.
big, yeah, right now, in some pretty big areas around the country, and it's starting to come to West Michigan. So just be aware of that for your people and for your buyers to know. Like, don't use an attorney opinion letter. That's where you would really need title insurance to figure out what's on that property. So those are some things that are really going on in the title world right now that we want to try to get out there. We do CE classes all the time, continued education for agents. We do have one coming up at the Allegan Library on the 16th, so and that's free for any agent that would want to come out and just hear some I think it's 1031 exchange and fair housing or something like that. So, but we always try to do stuff like that. We try to give back to the community as a company and MMLA and part of YPN too. So we always try to get out there and give back to the community too, which is pretty big up for us.
Yeah, we appreciate that. You guys throw a lot of industry, events and sponsor a lot of things and do a lot of continuing education to, lift
Mm-hmm.
the industry up. So keep doing that. We need it.
Yeah,
Education, knowledge is power.
it is.
So we always got to be continually learning. And I know that you're a lifetime learner, and that's why, we connect on so many
Yeah.
levels there. So,
And in our industry, you and I know this. We deal with a lot of real estate agents, and they deal with the consumer, and you deal with the consumer too. And it's really important to we have to over educate these consumers on really what's going on. This is the biggest purchase of most people's lives is their houses, and to
yeah,
take that seriously, to be a true fiduciary responsibility for these clients on, like, I'm going to over educate you on the process. I don't want you to have any questions when you're signing that paper. And that's really what it should be about. And, I know
yeah,
that's what you're about. That's what we're about. We just want to make sure it's done right for the consumer, because that's who it's about. I remember buying my first house and how nervous and scared I was because I didn't know a lot about the situation. And I wish I knew what I knew now, because I'm obviously in our industry, but
yeah.
that's where just education's huge in our industry, because a lot of people don't know what you don't know. And so,
Right. For sure. I mean that's so key. Dealing with first time home buyers. I'm a loan officer right now, so that's what I do. I talk to first time home buyers all the time, and I've got a few deals going on right now where, like, I mean, I love it. The people are asking me hundreds of questions, and you know, rightfully so. There's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of paperwork, a lot of documents that get sent. I mean, we have to redisclose fees whenever something new comes in or changes or whatever. They're
yep.
getting redisclosures, and they're like, what changed? Like, what's going on here? I just got one yesterday.
Mhm.
So you kind of have to, like, you have to prepare them for some of that stuff too. Like, hey, you're going to get a lot of paperwork.
Yeah.
Unless I tell you it's super important, for you to review it or sign it or whatever, like, don't worry about it. We've got time. It's
Yeah.
not going to happen in one day. So, like,
Yeah, exactly. And I love that you say that. So we were in a meeting the other day, and my boss Mario, he made a perfect quote with consumers coming into real estate that really don't know anything. It's like, you guys got to think of it as an agent and as title and as lenders. We're the teachers.
it's funny because I was recording an episode recently with someone else, and they were using an acronym, and I was like, just so everyone knows, this is what the acronym stands for, because we have so many acronyms in our business,
I
and
know.
we throw them out there, but it's like, hey, the average person or the person that's not in this industry isn't going to understand what we're talking about if we don't explain it fully, right? So,
Yeah,
it is breaking it down for people and just making it simple,
for sure.
and then the decisions become easy for them. Oh, okay, that's what points are. Or,
Hmm.
my application fee gets, credited back to me at the end of the process. So it's really more like a deposit, all these kinds of things that you're explaining. They really need to hear those things, and because they don't know, right? Especially those first time home buyers. So
Yeah,
I'm glad we could
exactly.
touch on that.
For sure, man. Yeah.
So is there anything else going on in the industry that you feel like needs to be brought to anyone's attention? Anything going on that you see really good that's happening?
Well, we were literally just talking about this before we got on the podcast with you and I, just our normal business of what's going on. And right now, I was at an event a couple of days ago, and people were telling me how slow they've been. But like personally, and like for me myself, like I've been really busy the last few months, and I know you said you were too. And I just take that to the
Yeah,
crazy thing is, it's like that's where the work you do 6 months ago pays off now. And my boss has always said that. And I feel like if you continue to keep yourself consistently busy, you're not going to have an issue with being slow per se. And obviously, our industry has big waves that comes and it
yeah,
goes. Like anybody who's been in the industry for long enough knows that. But I do feel like you're people that are involved in everything and try to go to all the events and really truly connect with people, the ones that stay busy and that usually typically don't have a problem. So me personally, man, I've been pretty busy lately. I know some of my teammates have been too. We've been pretty slammed lately. I think people are waiting for rates to drop a little bit just until they move again. I was actually golfing with somebody a few days ago at a commercial outing, and he said, and you might know this, correct me if I'm wrong, like over 70 something percent have like a 4% or lower right now. There's like so many people just still holding
yeah,
on to great
right.
rates, and who's going to blame them because they don't want to move yet until rates come pop down a little bit. So
Yeah, and that brings up a couple good points. For anyone who might be struggling out there, it is a cyclical business. I mean, shoot, we're coming out of, from an industry standpoint, the longest lowest point of this roller coaster ride that we've always been on. I mean, for almost 2 years, we kind of bottomed out there. So I think everyone sees the light at the end of the tunnel. We're on that upswing, and it feels like it's starting to be more consistent every month. Instead of one good month here and then maybe not one there. It's that consistency starts coming back, but it's also the consistency of I never stop doing the things that bring the business in, right? So, I
exactly.
mean, that's the thing. And that's always the hard part with our industry is it is cyclical in the fact that it's like, 30 to 60 days, we'll say, on a transaction, right? Maybe shorter, but that's about the average life cycle. And that's why sometimes our business goes like this, because we bring it all in, right? We go out and we get the business, but then we stop doing the things that bring the business in because we have the business, and we got to, manage that business and nourish it and make sure it gets to the closing table, right? So it is definitely, the more consistent you can be, the better the trajectory and the more consistent your income and your business will be as well. So
Yeah, for
I
sure.
love that. Consistency is always an important thing to touch on, because even myself, I realize when I stop being consistent on things, that's when things start to break down, and you're like, oh
Things
yeah,
fall
I
apart. Yeah.
stopped doing that thing, and now people aren't calling me, like, or whatever. Like it's so true. So
I
you're
know.
so wise, Josh. You bring many good points to the
Thanks.
table of discussion.
No, man. Well, I just feel like as you get older, you really start to realize what's important, right? And you put your priorities in check. For me, it's God, family, work. And, I'm always going to try to follow that projection, because if I get up and I read the Bible a little bit and I do my morning routine that I do, and then my day just flows so nicely when I start it off and I have that regular routine. And when it doesn't happen, man, that's when you fall through the cracks and you're just like, oh, I don't want to do this kind of stuff. But you just set yourself up for failure trying to do too much. And
Yeah,
man, it sounds cliche, but like I feel like people have to have some kind of routine to get them in check with their mental health, with their physical health. Because if you're going to show up better as a healthier person for your clients, you're going to show up and you're going to
yeah,
want to be there and do stuff, and
yeah.
I feel it's very important working out and what we eat and what we drink and things like that. It's like that's really important to me, and I find that's a big part of my success in my career, because I've always shown up healthy and in check with myself and things like that. So I think that's really important in our industry as well.
You got to set those non-negotiables for sure. And I know every time I get away from those things, that's always when I feel like life or anything starts spiraling, right? Like you feel overwhelmed and all these things. And it's like, oh, because you're not doing the things that are most important to your health and your
Mm-hmm.
body and, your mind. So, it's always important to set those non-negotiables and try and make sure that you stick to those. So,
For sure.
um, yeah, man, we've talked enough about business, Josh. Let's
Yeah,
talk a little bit about your why. What do you do outside the office? Tell us about your family,
for sure, man. So I've been married to my wife now, and you've met Amanda for almost 13 years. So it's been a beautiful blessing to have her. We have four boys, ages you wouldn't believe, because we have 20, 18, 17, 7. So we got four of them run around. But yeah, I grew up in Muskegon, Michigan. So from there, I worked brick and mortar retail for a very long time. I've always been in sales, almost 20 plus years now in sales. So I feel like what I've learned the most is just connecting with people, man, and having empathy and being a servant leader. That's, to me, if you can have those qualities as a person, as a company, those are the companies you really see are successful. And, you can tell it when you meet somebody. That's why you and I connect so well, because we're kind of cut from the same cloth as far as how we treat people, how we want to be treated, and things like that. So that really does go a long way, man. And that's, one reason why, a lot of us connect so well in our group.
Yeah. Tell us about your boys.
All right, so 20-year-old, that's Aiden. He just got back from culinary school, so he went to Culinary Institute of America, which is in New York.
Nice.
So yeah, he
Is he
came
cooking
back.
dinner for you every night?
Man, you would think, right? But
He's
no,
not.
he
What?
doesn't.
Come on, you got to put those skills to use.
We were, but he realizes I don't have an industrial kitchen here. It's a normal stove, and he's flying grease everywhere. And I was like, all right, bro, you can't cook for me anymore, because I love cooking too. Like, I'm a big chef guy.
Yeah.
But he's working at the Win though, which is in Jenison. He's saving up some money. He's going to get a car and finally find a place to live, which is, as kind of challenging right now in these times for a 20-year-old. But
Yeah. Good for
my
him.
my other son, he is going to go to school in Tampa Bay, which hopefully that's going to work out still. His name's Corbin. He was a big football player, but he's going into EMT nursing. So we're kudos to him. So my wife's a nurse, so but he wants to be firefighter-ish too, somewhere in that realm, which is kind of cool. I
Thank
got
them. Thank
and
them for their service, right?
for
For his
sure.
future service, but also your wife for her service.
Thanks, man.
We
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Alan actually just turned 18. He's in Hudsonville High School. He's a senior, so he's got one more year left. And then my wife and I got our last one, Hezekiah. So we call him Kai, which is a lot easier. But he's 7 at Granville. He loves football, basketball, and he's sometimes golfing with dad. So
Oh, nice.
that's what I like to do in my spare time, is golf and play basketball. But
Keeping you busy and on your toes, right?
oh, for sure. You got little ones too, man. They definitely keep you busy.
Yep. But a good busy, right?
Yeah, for
Fulfilling.
sure. And like you said, you coach. I was his little basketball coach for a couple of years, so I know how challenging it is getting 6 and 7-year-olds to run around a court trying to focus and pay attention and stuff like that. So,
I
but
have
it's fun.
7U soccer right now, so and that's girls. So that has been a delightful challenge.
Yeah.
It's the cutest thing ever. We practice for an hour every week, which I don't know, like I think at this age we could probably just show up to the game and do like a little practice beforehand and then play, but it is so funny trying to keep them wrangled up and interested.
Oh,
Um,
100%. That, dude, I was just saying that to somebody else. That half of my time, I was saying, "Hey guys, you got to go this way. No, we
yeah.
got to go back that way." Because yeah,
Yeah.
just have no.
Yep.
It's
Yep,
tough.
for sure. It's awesome, like there's also moments where, you can see that someone's having a challenging day or whatever, and you say something to lift them up and
Yeah.
it changes their perspective and, having parents say thank you so much for, helping her or doing this and that, it really makes a difference and an impact. And it's a reason why you're like, oh yeah, maybe coaching is a little bit more than just, telling them where to run on the
It
field.
is. It really is. They start to know you as a person and as a coach, and they start to
Yep.
trust you. And yep, it's more of a life kind of treating it like a life lesson instead of a coaching lesson, for sure.
Well, if you're a parent, you're a coach, you're coaching your own kids, and then when you're out there, you treat those kids just like your own. So it's no
Yep.
different, right?
True story. Yep.
Well, Hey man, it's been great having you on here. I want to finish up with everyone I have on the podcast. I asked them, and we maybe touched on it a little bit, but give us your one positive take on what's going to happen, in the next year or so in the mortgage industry and why people should be excited and
Yeah.
happy and looking forward.
For sure. I'm not a doom and gloom guy at all. And that's where I think we have a better situation because I'm more of an optimistic person about what's going to happen in the future. And like I said before, as long as we continue to push and we have people like you and I in our industry to continue wanting to climb and grow and succeed in what we do and everything, as being a father, a husband, and just a good coworker and a peer. A big part of that is, continue to do the things we need to do in our business, right? Going to events, connecting with people. But I think the rates are going to go down, man. I think I think either way, I think the rates are going to start trickling down a little bit, hopefully float around 5.5. And I think that's going to be a healthy marker to where at least maybe 3-4 percenters will actually feel comfortable moving because the payment won't be that high. So I think we're going to be okay, man. I know a lot of economists say in 2030 we're looking at a recession, but the good thing about Grand Rapids, Michigan, we obviously, we have Professor Isley does our economic forecast, and he thinks Grand Rapids is going to be pretty solid through the recession just because of how good our city is growing. We got the soccer stadium coming, we got the amphitheater coming, so Grand Rapids is growing comparative to other countries or the other states and stuff like that, which is nice, but. I think Grand Rapids is looking good, man. So I have a pretty good view of us continuing to climb the ladder. And as a company, we just got licensed in Ohio too, which is pretty cool. So it just shows our company is actually growing as well. So we're looking forward to the future, man. If you don't, then what are we doing? If we don't think we're gonna have an optimistic, positive future, then what is there to look for? So that's, I guess, my stance on the last part of that.
Well, there was a lot of doom and gloom in the industry, though. I mean, how many phrases and things did we have to get over? Like what was it, survive till 25 or something like
Yeah,
that? Wasn't that one of
stupid
the
stuff,
terms?
man.
Like, come
And
on, man,
it is
we can't
crazy.
be thinking that way, right?
No, it's full circle because, even from my speech from last year at the holiday party, I said a lot of us have to do what we were doing in the beginning to continue our success, right? And it was kind of like back to the basics, but not, you have to do those basic things always, but you have to be able to evolve because, dude, our industry is evolving with remote online notarizations to all this e-signing to everything going like digital. It just shows you how fast this industry is growing. And if you're not part of that growth, then unfortunately you are, falling away and you're dying out. So,
Yep, you got to keep growing for sure, man.
yes, sir.
Hey, Josh, I look forward to continuing to grow with you and all the listeners out there listening to the MMLA Connect podcast. We appreciate you. Keep listening. We're going to keep showing up, and we hope you do too. Thanks
Have
again,
a good one,
Josh.
guys. Thanks, guys.